Spider's back! This will be my last session. I'll tell you why I'm back.
Spider, spider, here comes Spider.
I don't know if you can see it, it's too curled up. I don't think you can see my banner, it's too curled up. And I'm not hungover from New Year's Eve. In the red zone. Bang! Probably couldn't see any of it, it's all curled up, my banner. I gotta uncurl it. Gotta go curling. No, how you doing? I'm back because I need to be back because I didn't want to end it the way it ended because it was just too much on the schooners. Even though I'm glad I did it on the schooners. Bloody banner. Anyway, I think it'll survive. So I wanted to talk more about things. I didn't have enough time in the end, and to talk about things that I really believe in 2020 needs to happen in the CFL. And I don't know if there's a clause in their agreement with the Canadian Players Association that they can revisit issues and I know the players, you know, would like to do that, and they probably have. I don't know in the contract that there's clauses that can revisit and change something if it's not working, if it's kind of buried the CFL and put it out of business. But what I see in the last agreement was all for the Canadian players, nothing for the owners. This NFL window was brutal. We'll get into that because I didn't have enough time to talk about that. And I apologize in my last session for my blind. Okay, I didn't really look into the monitor because I was listening to the audio, and the audio is most important because you're not going to be able to see that picture very well. So I'm just trying to present it in a way that there's some sort of visual with the audio, but the audio is what's most important. So I'm sorry about the blind reflection in the small little, you know, tablet screen. Sorry about that. If I would have checked the monitor earlier, I was more listening to the audio, which I've heard before, but I should have checked the monitor and I would have fixed it. Okay, but so I'm not going to redo it because I don't do reruns, retakes. They're all live takes. Okay, so I just want to get into some things I want to talk about before closing out for the new year. Into 2020, which we are into now. I think it's January 3rd. So let's have a toast to Atlantic Schooners, and okay, and hopefully the 10th franchise for Atlantic Canada in our capital city of Halifax for 2020 that it's approved. Apparently they have a conditional franchise, is what they said during the last City Hall meeting on the vote. 10, by the way, I said in the last video, 10 councillors voted. That's counting the mayor, okay? So he's on board. He better be. Okay, but getting back to something I said about, I was talking to a councillor too. When I was talking about half a stadium thing. I mean, I said, if you got to build it right. And I told the person what Mr. McNeil said. You know, it's got to be the right size to hold big events. And we know what he's referring to, like I said in my last session, the Grey Cup game. So I don't think he's going to be very much interested in half a stadium that can't hold a Grey Cup game. I don't think so. Like this council told me, this was just getting at that $20 million, which is a drop in the bucket, like I said, to the next phase, okay? Phase 2. With the province, and there'll be some negotiation with the province and LeBlanc, but mainly with the city, because they're not doing very much, okay? So if this is going to happen, the city has to step up. But like this council told me, that design of that half-assed, I call it like half a stadium, it's brutal. That has to change. That will change, and it will have to, because you can't build half a stadium. This is 2020, Premier McNeil. I think he knows that. Mayor Savage, I was very disappointed with him when he was on just before, between Christmas and New Year's. He was on the Global station locally, right? And they asked him if he, I don't know if I said this in my last session or not, I don't think I did. I don't believe I was on before that. And he was asked if, yeah, I was talking, no, he wasn't, because I was talking to friends over Christmas Eve over this, inviting me over my neighbors for seafood chowder. And I was talking about this, and they thought it was terrible. when he was asked in Global News, Mayor Savage, would he buy, and he voted to go to the next phase 2 with the province, to see what kind of deal they can put together to bring this to fruition, to make this happen. They'll never have another opportunity, by the way. So Mayor Savage, when he said, when he was asked in Global News if this happens, the stadium is built, and there's a 10th CFL team in Halifax, if he would support it, he would buy season tickets. He said, I think it would. He says, I think it'd be fun. He says, but I'm really an NFL fan. Can you imagine? It's unbelievable. When I told my neighbor friends this, they couldn't believe it. They thought that was just totally wrong and totally so pompous, so rude, so ignorant. This Mayor Savage, look, go live in the United States then. Go take your bed down like the rest of you and sleep on the little tiny little wee field, right? Do you know something? People that run down the CFL in their own country should be ashamed of themselves. And they literally think, because they don't even know how many games, Mayor Savage doesn't know how many games there is. He thinks there are 8 games. He doesn't even watch CFL. Probably didn't even watch the Grey Cup. That's our mayor. And what's so unbelievable, these NFL brainwashed fans, they're so brainwashed because of money, okay, and big stadiums and all the hype in the NFL, and they do a super job. But they literally think an NFL field is larger than a CFL field. Do the math. The CFL field is 48% larger than an NFL field. I call NFL football, seriously, outdoor arena football. That's exactly what it is. And a 40-second clock, you don't have to play the game, and you can win the game. Even Doug Flutie said that. If you can't get down in the red zone with 4 downs and score a touchdown every time, like, you have to give it down away. The game doesn't work. And with that little wee field and the little end zone, you could literally underhand the ball in the end zone. But it's so overrated, so overhyped. And why are they robbing all the CFL players? Let's talk about the NFL window. Let's talk about the problems in the CFL here. There's 4 major issues that CFL need to change if they're going to survive. Seriously, literally. And they're talking the 10th team. Mr. Ambrosi, look, I wish you well in the CFL 2.0, but you got major issues in Montreal. Not even an owner yet. What is the CFL owner's going to run it? They get Alouettes next year again. Brayley can't sell. And I'll tell you why they can't sell. And here are the issues that need to be addressed. 4 major issues I'm going to go over. Let's talk about the NFL window. That's one of them. And the 1-year contracts. Let's get back to that and talk about that. I heard on 1040, I was listening to last night, on December 30th, they were talking about the Lions, about Brayley trying to sell. He can't get an owner. Can't get an owner, you know why? Look at all the empty seats. Look at Montreal. Who's going to buy a CFL franchise now? Okay, just look at the shape the CFL's in. So I think Mr. Ambrosi, seriously, like a lot of people said in the Grey Cup, you got to look after your own ship first. I wish you well with that, the 2.0. But the problem with the 2.0 is you got, like Dave Dickinson said, it's got to be a wild card. You can't be taking more American players out of a game that we're losing to the NFL and slot them in with a real weak global player that you're trying to get TV contracts and force them to basically to start, like the Canadian starter ratio players that aren't good enough to play. Same thing. And take away another American spot and the Canadian ratio, guaranteed Canadian ratio starter spots aren't touched. No, come on. That has to change. It's got to be a wild card. That is so political. I'm sorry. That's not right. That's not right. Who's running the CFL? The owners or the Canadian Players Association? Really and truly. And their Canadian ratio. So I'm going to get into the Canadian ratio too. That's a major problem. I'm going to get into that. So let's get back to the NFL window. They were saying on 1040, okay, with the one-year contracts, now the NFL window with compounds the problem. Makes it even worse. So the 322 free agents, imagine. Like, and that's going to go up at the NFL window. Can you imagine? And like they said in Vancouver, TSN 1040, when they're talking about what's happening in the CFL and how brutal the one-year contracts and what it's doing to the CFL and the fan base. I mean, they were saying the fans can only buy a Mike Riley jersey. Well, that's not really true because his contract, he can get out of it every year and go to the NFL. Bo Levi Mitchell, any CFL quarterback. That's how bad this one-year contract is. It's brutal. So why sign a 3 or 4 contract? And by the way, they were saying 60 to 70% because of this one-year contract's NFL window. The imagine the whole team is depleted. Complete new team, 70% change or more. Every team, 60 to 70%. Different players. How you would ever buy a CFL jersey for any of those players? How can you market your team? How can you sell your team? How can you sell season tickets? How can you sell game day tickets? It's unbelievable. And this is what the CFL is doing. Well, the Canadian Players Association, they're the ones that want, because Sinopoli told me straight up, they're the ones that want the one-year contract. They're the ones who want the NFL window. They're the ones who are pushing it. Okay? And then they say, oh, we need a guaranteed contract. They would never guarantee their contract, because the Canadian players, like the American players, they all want to go to the NFL. But Dave Dickinson said it right. Let's take some pride in our league. Mark Cohen would never, never allow this to happen. And look at the CFL one they had. He had to sign a 2-year contract, okay? And you couldn't get out of it. If you can't give 2 years to the CFL, you shouldn't be coming up to the CFL. And there's players that will, and those are the players who want. And Mark Cohen was right. Now look at his attendance numbers. There was no teams up for sale. Look at his numbers. Look at his numbers. Look at his numbers. Okay? Toronto Argonauts might have been, but he resolved that. Or place for them to play. That's what it was. Okay? And BMO Field was resolved. But anyway, look at the attendance. Look at the Grey Cup, man, with Mark Cohen. Like, look at the attendance in every regular CFL game. It was like booming, because they didn't have this fully to 1-year contracts. It's in the NFL window. It's unbelievable. So this is what's happening. This is what's happening, man. The NFL window was taken away because it was hurting the CFL, and all these top American players are going, and the teams are releasing them too, so they can go. It's brutal. It's become a real NFL farm league, and it doesn't have to be that, and Mark Cohen didn't want it to be that. So that's one of the issues that needs to change big time. They have to have a meeting, and this has to change. And if it continues another 2 years, there's going to be more and more and more like that had season tickets that aren't going to renew. There's going to be more and more people, less and less people in the stands. There's not going to be anybody going. You can't relate to a team. I mean, you imagine the Toronto Maple Leafs and Montreal Canadiens, their whole team, 75-85% of the team is depleted every year. Can you imagine? How would they ever sell any jerseys or merchandise? How they couldn't even get excited about their team. Like, it's just unbelievable. It's just insane. Like, I just can't believe it. And since I've been a CFL fan, that this is happening. It's unbelievable. But it's killing the CFL. You see the results, okay? The Canadian ratio. Let's talk about the Canadian ratio. On the I know he's not very popular, actually. Rob Peterson's show. He's not popular. He's not well liked. Okay, he's quite pompous. You know. I mean, he wouldn't take questions. He's very political in with the Canadian players. He would take questions in the Canadian ratio. But guess who was on there and mentioned the problem that took his place in his show one time? You're not going to believe it. Okay? He was a player, and I'll tell you, I'll give you his name in a minute. But he said the way it was. He said that you have to protect your investment, and the top offensive players, the few that are really half decent, are going in the NFL, the Canadian draft. They're going in the NFL that can't be drafted, even if they're the =1 pick. They can't be drafted, and the only reason that is because they want to fill the Canadian starter ratio. They're forced to fill it, right? But like he said, they got to change the Canadian ratio. Nick Lewis, Canadian, I just wrote some notes down, needs to be changed to protect the quarterback investment in the CFL. And the problem is the Canadian ratio. The Canadian ratio is a big problem. Imagine a 10th team with the Canadian ratio. It's so bad now, it's killing the CFL. And now with the global thing, it's going to make it worse, because it's going to take away more American players that they desperately need. And this is why it's more difficult to get American players to come up to the CFL, because of this, because of the Canadian ratio, and because the imbalance in salaries. The Canadian player, like Canadian O-lineman that's not as good as American O-lineman that's probably sitting on the bench because they got to fill the Canadian starter ratio, is making like $250,000, $220,000 when in a lot of cases not even good to start. And the American players are getting screwed because imbalance of salaries because the Canadian ratio, roster ratio. That's a guaranteed Canadian roster. Half the ratio roster has to be Canadian. That's what we call Canadian guaranteed Canadian roster ratio. Then the Canadian starter ratio is 7 starters, and they play more because of injuries, which is it's brutal. So American players, the word is out. I mean, it's so political in the CFL. They get screwed. They're sent home from training camp when they actually were way better and could have easily made the team in a starting position. They're sent home for Canadian players that are not even good enough. They're 4th and 5th straight players, and which nobody wants to see. And they're starting in the CFL, and they're watering down the CFL. They're ruining the CFL. They're making the product on the field, as you can see, quite poor. I mean, you have to have the best. You can't have any weak links. You have the best available players starting at every position, and the roster spots too, and in the backup, okay, and your roster. You have to have the best players. You can't have the system that's now with the Canadian ratio, starting ratio. It's got to go. It's not working. I found on my survey I did, it was detested. And the major market, by the way, in the CFL, they're not even touching. Okay, and that's the rafter, you know, the NHL market, the Major League Baseball, the Jays market. That's the mass market, Canadian sports market that the CFL is not even tapping into. They don't like my survey that I surveyed a lot of them. They love my CFL Red Zone rule, by the way, and we'll start watching CFL 3-down football if it was made part of our CFL 3-down game. But one of the complaints was the Canadian ratio. The Canadian ratio is a no-no. They don't like it, and for many reasons. For many, many reasons. It doesn't allow the best available players to start and play in the CFL in every position for entire CFL game, like in the NFL, like in the NHL, like in Major League Baseball, NBA, and yes, even MLS soccer. Okay, they allow the best available players. They don't have a Canadian ratio. It's ridiculous. MLS soccer, they have the Canadian MLS soccer teams have I think a 3 roster ratio for the Canadian players to develop them. Okay, they're not forced to start them. This is just ridiculous. And look at their attendance compared to the CFL's attendance. So something has to change here. The Canadian ratio's got to go. The Canadian starter ratio's got to go. The NFL window and the 1-year contract's got to go, so we can get some continuity. And team and players will have to sign a minimum of 2-year contracts. And the CFL quarterback contracts, if they sign a 3-year, they have to agree to that. They can't get out of it and try out in the NFL. That's just unbelievable. Every year, go to the NFL and try the NFL. How are you going to sell any tickets that you know your star quarterback's going to the NFL the next year? Can you imagine? In the CFL. It's unbelievable. See, these are the changes that have to happen, and they have to happen. You have to have solutions. Like, you know, you have to have solutions. And like when I did my survey, when, you know, you look at the attendance, you look how popular the NFL is versus the CFL. You know, and in my survey, I found out the complaints of our CFL 3-down game itself versus the NFL game was too much kicking, too many field goals and too many points in the CFL, too many 2-and-outs don't even exist in the NFL, and in relation to too many field goals, for easy chip shot field goals, it's magnified in the red zone where you see another boring 2-down football stop resulting in another non-eventful, predictable, you know, monotonous, easy chip shot field goal that no football fan wants to see, especially in a 3-down game. And the solution to that is my CFL Red Zone rule. Can you imagine? The 2 biggest turnoffs, 2 biggest killers of our CFL 3-down game in the red zone, completely gone with my SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule. Okay? Complemented by my SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule kick, which is a big part of my CFL Red Zone rule, by the way. And on my brochure, like I said in my last sessions, we're going to try to revamp that and put my SPYDER CFL Red Zone rule in a nutshell on it. Change it a little bit. I'm going to order 250, so I'm going to have a lot more. And I'm going to have my big radio blitz, like I said. So I just want to check to see. I just wanted to go over some things I really wanted to talk about. See if I'm leaving anything out here. The global thing is going to be 2 active players and 3 in the roster. So 5 more plays like per team. It's unbelievable, right? The CFL I'm telling you right now, without the top American players and top American quarterbacks, CFL wouldn't exist. Yes, I want to see the best Canadian players playing in the CFL, but only if they want to play in the CFL. Okay? And they have to make the team. And put them in a roster spot to develop them if they're good enough. Okay? And then have them work their way up. American players do that because their Canadian ratio forces them to do that when they're even good enough. Because there's no room for it. There's no jobs. There's no... all the Canadian, basically the old lineman positions in the CFL is taken by the Canadian players' offensive lineman ratio to fill the Canadian starter ratio and the Canadian starter roster ratio. So this is why, this is brutal. But, you know, if the Canadian players are good enough, and Canadian Player Associations can't be running the CFL. They got to be brought down. You got to break them. This has got to stop. There's another thing that have to change. You have to have solutions here. You got to go to bat and get the job done. And say my CFL Red Zone rule, it's a solution to the problem. All the complaints about our CFL 3-down game, it's a big solution. And it eliminates the two biggest killers, two biggest turnoffs of their CFL 3-down game. It'd be huge for our CFL 3-down game if wisely adopted by the CFL. So, you know what I said last time, I gave you some very important information that I want to keep it tight-lipped. I didn't tell you quite all, and I won't be able to tell you any more at this point, but I gave you a lot of personal, a lot of private information there, but, you know, I want you to know about what's going on. So, anyway, we'll see what happens in 2020 with Spider's CFL Red Zone rule. Okay, so we're almost going to get to the end here. This went really, really fast. So the CFL, you know, here's what has to happen. The CFL needs what's best for the CFL, you know, and what's best for the CFL fans, right? Not what's best for the NFL. That's the problem. That's where they're tuned out. The CFL needs to change. The CFL needs to change if they want to survive. And they need to strive, you know, as a league, you know, a game. They really have to. And this is the way they have to do it. They have to make those 4 major changes, you know. My CFL Red Zone rule, get rid of the Canadian starter ratio, right? Get rid of the 1-year contracts, the NFL window, and much better marketing. That's the 4th one. Their branding's got to be much better. See my CFL Red Zone rule diagram? That's going to be on my field. My CFL Red Zone rule graphics and CFL Red Zone rule kick graphics. You imagine that at a CFL game, okay, on TV and live at a CFL stadium. Okay, so we need Spider's CFL Red Zone rule. We need Spider's combo, okay, as well. The CFL's got to allow the best available players to start and play in the CFL. Then we'll have a product to sell, better marketing, not handcuffed by Canadian ratio, get rid of the 1-year contracts, okay. We're ready to go, right? Spider's CFL Red Zone rule in 2020. Let's see what happens. Take care, all the best. Spider, here comes Spider, CFL's Red Zone rule. Hit it!